We understand that, we do have a talented team. I think sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce your way. But I think spiritually, I think we have enough, good guys in the locker room where, we're not necessarily moping around. We're just trying to find a way, how can we, get a win.
The New Orleans Saints fall to 3-7 on the year. That's their worst start since 2005, the Katrina season. Welcome into the Black and Gold Report. I'm Corey Rholdon, joined by ESPN Radio's Matt Musso. Last week, Matt, we came on here and said if the Saints lose to this horrible Steelers football team, that the season was over. Is the season over, Matt?
Season's over. Season's over. It was already hard to find wins on the schedule regardless, Corey. It's even more difficult now. There's just nothing there on offense. There's still nothing there on defense. It's bad. It feels rock bottom, at least for this moment.
Yes.
I mean, what was the biggest storyline with the Steelers all year? Their offense is terrible. Kenny
Pickett's been horrible. They ran the football for 90 yards a game, and they had over 200 yards rushing.
217. 379 total. They wanted to run Matt Canada out of town.
They didn't have a rushing touchdown in 5 weeks. Against the Saints, they have 2. And my biggest takeaway from this game, Matt, is the turnovers and penalties strike yet again. The Saints committed 10 penalties. They turned the ball over twice, and they don't create any for themselves. And they allow a bad football team to win this game. It's inexcusable.
They allowed a bad football team to dominate the game.
You're right.
39 minutes of time of possession for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's unacceptable. What happened to the once vaunted Saints rush defense?
Oh,
it's gone. Remember, it was, 50-plus games they didn't allow a 100-yard rusher? That seems like it was 10 years ago at this point.
I know you saw that highlight of Najee Harris just running up the middle, trucking P.J. Williams. It's just absolutely bad with this Saints football team right now, and here's what the Black and Gold had to say after their loss.
I can't say anything is missing. I mean, we had 10 penalties today, 2 turnovers, I believe. Third down, we wasn't really good on either side of the ball tonight, and usually against good teams, that gets you beat.
We have the right people in this locker room. We've got the right people on this team and in this organization, and the only way we can do is we got to stick together and understand what we have to do. Everybody needs to look at themselves and say, what can I do better?
The Saints keeping it positive, though. We might be negative, but the Saints in the locker room, very positive this week as they fall 2 games behind the Tampa Bay Bucks in the lead in the NFC South. The NFC South is just horrible. The Bucks are in first place with a 5-5 record. Matt, what do you do from here?
That's a great question.
What do you do?
I don't know if they know the answer. To be brutally honest, I mean, Dennis Allen keeps preaching fundamentals, and we got to correct the penalties. You got to stop the run on defense. But man, you've played 10 games. At this point, you kind of are what you are. It'd be easy to sit here and say, well, first of all, if you tackled better, you'd be in a better position to win a lot of football games. If you had better play from quarterback, you'd be in a lot of better position to win games. But I don't know if that's really in the cards this year for the New Orleans Saints. Andy Dalton is not the player he was.
He's not.
Jameis Winston is not healthy, and they seem very steadfast that they're not giving Taysom Hill a shot at that position with this regime. So what do? It's a lot of just cliche answers, but when cliche things keep going wrong, you look to the cliche problem.
And might be time to blow it up there in New Orleans this offseason. Yeah. Now the Saints get ready for the Los Angeles Rams, the defending champs, 2 of the most disappointing teams in the NFL with a ton of injury problems. Matt, what's your biggest matchup?
So Cooper Kupp not being there for LA is massive, and I think that is actually one matchup that favors the New Orleans Saints in this game. Cooper Kupp has 812 receiving yards. The next closest guy, 385. He has 75 receptions. The next closest guy, 44. 6 touchdowns for Kupp. The next closest is 2. He is the passing game. You look at Matthew Stafford, he's not 100% healthy. He'll play, but he's not all right. The New Orleans Saints, yes, no Lattimore, but Alontae Taylor and Paulson Adebo, they've played pretty well in his absence. Marcus May, although limited, should see action. I actually do like the Saints secondary going up against a injured and already not productive Rams receiving corps.
You see the Rams offensive line absolutely struggling right here in these highlights, just getting bullied. They've been horrible this season, averaging less than 17 points per game. and then the second fewest yards in the NFL. And it's crazy to even think about. They're coming off of a Super Bowl win, and they're 3-6 on the season. It's just, I think the Saints defensive line has to play well, and they're going to have to get pressure on Matthew Stafford and against a bad offensive line, just like the Rams are probably going to do against the Saints against their struggling offensive line. For more keys to victory, we're going to turn to our very own Chris Lunkin. Chris, what do you got?
Yeah, Corey, after 2 weeks of terrible offensive play, the Saints find themselves stuck in the franchise's lowest point since before the Peyton Breeze era. Looking to avoid their second 3-game losing streak, here are my keys to victory. First, what happened to the rushing attack? Earlier in the year, the Saints found a groove running the football, averaging well over 150 yards a game, which led to points. However, in the last 2 matchups, the Saints have plummeted to just under 40 rush yards a game. It's evident that this is a team that needs to be more effective when they can get the ground game going. Second, they have to win the field position battle. Look, I believe this game will be a defensive slugfest, and with the way these two offenses have struggled recently. I like the Saints' chances if they can force the Rams to drive the length of the field while setting up the offense in favorable field position. And lastly, don't let Aaron Donald take over the game. There's an argument that AD is perhaps the best overall player in the league, let alone just on the defensive side. Winning this game will ultimately come down to controlling him and giving the offense a chance to push the ball. They do this, and I believe they will have a shot at beating the Rams.
You know, I know we've said all show about the Saints in the season possibly being over. They are still only 2 games out of the lead in the NFC South, and if they were to make a run, they would have to do it this weekend. Matt, what do you think? Who do you have in this game?
So I think it's just an absolutely hideous football game. The total's 39, and it actually might go under that. I actually think it does. The Saints, the big thing that bothers me and why I don't think they score a lot is Aaron Donald, as you said. The interior of your offensive line's gone at this point, and he's going to feast throughout that game. But I think the Saints make a play late, and I think they do squeak it out at home against another bad offense. I'll take New Orleans a little bit begrudgingly, 17-14.
Chris?
So I'm going to go ahead and say, like I said, I think it's going to be a defensive battle, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say the Saints win a 13-6 game. And there's a lot of factors that I have going into this. One, like we alluded to earlier, they're coming off a very, very low point. Like losing to a terrible Steelers team. And this is still a defense that have veteran players that have pride, as Tyrann Mathieu said in the start earlier. So I think they're going to come out playing hard. The offensive line will be a problem guarding containing AD. So I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair, but Saints do pull it out at home.
Definitely take the under in this one, but I am going to pick the Rams. I trust Matthew Stafford way more than I trust Andy Dalton, and the Saints just continue to hurt themselves more than they help themselves. I think they're going to lose the turnover battle and the penalty battle yet again and lose on Sunday and fall to 3-8 on the year. Not good. Thank you for joining us on the Black and Gold Report. For Chris, Matt, myself, we'll see you guys next week.